Hello everyone and welcome to another custom figure Redux. If you are watching this on the day it came out, I apologise. I could not resist the opportunity of putting it up as what I think review as a little April Fool's. This is very much an April Fool's, but I hope that what you're about to see makes up for my little joke, because this is my concept custom idea for a new character online exclusive set for K9. Which has obviously a new style of box, or at least a box that sort of mimics the original style. As you can see, we've got the TARDIS. I sort of put on some nice circuit board decals because I thought it was very K9, and obviously we've got the little bits down here, K9 throughout the years 1977 to 2010, collector's figure set. Obviously if we bring it round, we've got that on the side as well, and on the top we've got a little bit of writing over the top as well. Inside, obviously we've got all the nice K9s lined up with this lovely TARDIS backdrop. And we have K9 from the Invisible Enemy, the Androids of Tara, the Girl's Best Friend, and the Nightmare Man. So let's get into the box and have a look at what we've got. So for the first one we have K9 from the Invisible Enemy. This was his first appearance. Overall I've given it a sort of slightly dark silver repaint. The tail has been painted more of a gloss black, as has sort of the neck tubing. The sort of bumpers around the edge I've painted a black, and then I've also repainted the collar a green with some red and yellow accents, just to sort of make it look a little bit more different. Again, these aren't intended to be 100% accurate, but I wanted each of them to just sort of have a slightly different look to them and make them look a little bit more unique in the pack, which was, again, sort of the point of it. You know, just really make them all stand out and be individual whilst still retaining the same base figure. Next we have K9 from the Androids of Tara, and for this one I've given him a little bit more of a dark metallic grey, but everything else wise, the bumpers and the tail are again a sort of a gloss black. I've kept the collar this time as red with some yellow and blue accents. And that's pretty much all I've done here. Obviously, as you can see as well, I've also painted the plate on his other side a more sort of a silver. Now, when I've actually watched the story back for this one, he didn't seem to sort of have that much dark of a paint, but it's based on a promotional image from him, which I think the image itself is actually darker, which makes his sort of paintwork look a bit darker. But you know, it wouldn't be the first time that we've had sort of figures that have sort of had slight changes based on behind-the-scenes photos and things like that. And again, I just wanted it to sort of make him really stand out to the other ones. And personally, I sort of quite like the contrast between the black, the silver accents, and the sort of darker metallic grey. Next we have K9 from K9 and Company, more specifically the story is titled A Girl's Best Friend. This one I've had to take a little bit more of a creative license with this, just to make it stand out a little bit more, and it's actually based off sort of various things, because the one from K9 and Company is obviously meant to be the Mark III K9, I believe it's the Mark III K9, possibly the Mark II, either way. The point is that this was a K9 that was gifted to Sarah Jane by the Doctor, and I looked over some sort of images for it, and it was sort of a difficult one to sort of place, because depending on what source material you looked at, he was a slightly different colour throughout sort of each one. And so what I ended up doing in the end was going for this more sort of slightly darker blue, which sort of evoked some of the sort of stills of the classic era, but also evoked his look at during school reunion, where he is sort of slightly grubby and dirtied up. But the colour that he's got in that is a more sort of slightly darker, faded darker blue, compared to the much lighter blue at the end of the episode. So to sort of complement that, I put on darker grey bumpers as well, but the collar I've actually kept the same as to sort of the standard collar that was already on the figure. But also in the K9 TV series, which obviously I know is, you know, disregarded by a lot of fans, he does have a sort of slightly more sort of bluish green tint to him in there as well. And famously, Dapple released a toy of K9 where he is basically green for some reason. So I sort of combined different elements for that to sort of try and make a canine that just stood out a bit more compared to the others, because I think if I'd had him a really bright silver, or even just the sort of same light blue silver that he had seen in School Reunion, it just would have looked a little bit too similar in terms of like a straight up re-release, and I would have sort of ended up then with two figures that would have looked exactly the same, which I'm gonna come back to more a little bit in a moment. And lastly here we have Canine from the Sarah Jane Adventures. I specifically went for the story The Nightmare Man because obviously Canine wasn't in the Sarah Jane Adventures a lot. I did consider putting in the sort of School Reunion version, which this could double up for, but again I just wanted to make it a little bit different, have a very, very slight paint variation, because literally the only thing that I've done on here is to repaint the little side panel here black, again just to make it look a little bit different and change some things up. But it was the reason that I went for this one, and again I went for the Nightmare Man, because again it was one of the few times that Canine actually appeared, main times he appeared in the Sarah Jane Adventures, and I feel if I'd had the clean School Reunion version here compared to the previous one, rather than have one from the A Girl's Best Friend, Canine and Company, is I could have had the rusty version from School Reunion and then this one from the Nightmare Man, but I feel like they would have looked too similar and you would have basically had two straight up re-releases. So I figured if we were going to have a Canine from the new series, it would be good to have one that was intended to be a new Canine, which would have been the Mark IV. Hence why I decided to go for him as he appears later in the Sarah Jane Adventures rather than School Reunion. You could put this down as School Reunion, you know, it really wouldn't make any difference, but obviously for School Reunion, most of the episode he appears in his rusted state, so I think having him appear in this clean state from the end of that episode, it just felt more appropriate to put him in as a full episode from the Sarah Jane Adventures. But I also wanted to do this version because obviously the rusty version of him does look very good, but I think the clean version of him in this sort of 5-inch scale is actually a little bit harder to get hold of. You know, when I went on eBay to look at all of these, there were lots of rusty versions, because it's worth pointing out actually, I realise I should have perhaps said this at the start if I haven't already. All of these canines, with the exception of this one, are repainted from the rusty versions because they were so easy to find, but the actual clean versions was a little bit more hard to get hold of. So I figured if you were going to put a new updated series, new series version of Canine in this, is to put this clean one, because again it'll be one that perhaps not a lot of people have had and find very easy to get hold of. Obviously as well, this is a custom one, so I'd like to talk about the box a little bit. As you can see, I actually used a cereal box to make this sort of insert panel, but it's come out really well. The problem was obviously to actually get the figures to stay in place. I wanted them to be able to take them out of the box, but also keep them in place. Now this isn't a suggestion that I'm suggesting that Character Options do, because I appreciate this really wouldn't be cost effective, and I feel that if this was a real product, they'd probably put a plastic loop in there to actually fix them into the box. But in order to put them in place, what I've actually done is I've super glued a couple of strong magnets onto the bottom of K9, and then under each figure I've actually also put, I say they're strong magnets, he's just fallen over, but I've put some strong magnets underneath, so basically whichever one you want to put him in place in, he'll sort of stick there. Within a, you know, within reason he'll stick there obviously, but it holds the figure in place nicely and it sort of keeps them all nice and lined up. And then in terms of obviously, you know, interior, I wanted it to look fairly sort of realistic, so I thought, well, a good sort of TARDIS interior would be a good thing. And then obviously just some little red labels, as you would perhaps get on a Character Options set, just to notify inside which one is which. So there we have the set. Again, I apologise if for my little joke, it was too well timed to actually pass up the opportunity of doing this. You know, if you're one of those people, and I expect there's going to be a lot of them who are going to look at this and they're going to look at the date and they're going to go, I see what you're doing. That's fair enough, you know, but I hope that a couple of people saw this and went, oh my god, you know. Obviously, if you're watching this at a later date, it will be up as a custom figure Redux. But, you know, for the time being, or at least the day that this is up, you know, if this is a custom figure Redux, it is not a review of a new set. I had to put it up as an April Fool's because it was funny, but at the same time, I wanted to make a point about this, in that although in the past we have had some sets where we've had basically the same figures in a set with some minor variation, they've been very controversial, some of them. Some of them I understand people's reservations about them, other ones I think people are being a little bit too critical, but that's, you know, that's just me, that's just by the by. But I think this is a prime example of how you could have the same figure in a set and have simple variations of it, and it would sell. I think people really would go for this if it was offered as a set. On which note as well, I would like to make a point in this video. So I did show this to Al Jawar over at Character Options. Obviously he's always interested to know sort of the customs and things like that I come up with. But this is one of those ones that when I showed it to him, I sort of said, I say it in a jokey way, but I think at the same time as well, I think it is, you know, I do mean it quite seriously. I said to him, you know, if in the event this is an idea that takes your fancy, I'm not saying we're going to definitely get this, I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying that we are getting this as an official set. Let me be very, very clear about that. I do not wish to put words in his mouth, but I have said to him, if this does take your interest and we might get an official version of this, I hereby relinquish all rights to the idea. The only thing I wish is for a little credit somewhere on the box for the idea. That's it. I don't want any money or anything like that. I would love to see this as an official set. I really would, because I think it would sell, and I really don't want to be the reason why, you know, if this suddenly takes somebody's fancy at CO, and I don't want there to be a case of, yeah, but we don't want to be accused of taking the idea from so-and-so. By all means, you have my permission to use the idea. All I wish for is just a little mark on the box somewhere, because that would be amazing for me to have that. So, you know, again, I really do hope that we get something like this in future, because I really, really do think it would sell. I think people would absolutely go for it. You know, and it would be perfect as well when you consider how many sort of ways you could do this as well, because you could do it as this, as a single set of canines. Alternatively, you could have a re-release of Leela. You could have a new variant of Romana released for the androids of Tara. Girl's Best Friend, you have another new Sarah Jane one, and obviously Nightmare Man, you could have an older Sarah Jane. You know, there's plenty of sort of ideas that you could do for these figures. You know, and do them as a sort of canine and figure set, or do them all as this, as a single, you know, canine throughout the year set. I think it would work really, really well. But that brings to a close another custom figure Redux, not a What I Think review. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you weren't too put out by my little April Fool's joke. Like, favourite, subscribe, share. It really does help me out a lot. And be sure to description below for a link to my Patreon. I am still doing my figure animation. It is still coming soon with an update. I am still coming soon with an update, I should say. Obviously, we have been recently renovating a house. We're getting very much to the crunch time of that, and also moving time. So I have been extremely busy between that and work. But I am still going to be providing an update on it very soon, and hopefully some more bits from sort of behind the scenes stuff of things that I've been working on to do with it. But for the meantime, all of your donations are greatly received, and for the smallest donation, you can get your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.